Right now, what scares me the most isn't that people born in the 90s won't have children, or that those born in the 2000s won't get married. It's that people born after 1980 are even supporting their children's choice not to marry or have kids. Especially since the new marriage law came out, more people are choosing not to get married or have children. Can you believe it? In the future, no matter how well a woman cleans, cooks, or takes care of the kids, if she doesn't earn money herself, she will end up with nothing after a divorce. This is because the new marriage law protects personal property. If you didn't earn the money, you won't get a penny of it. On February 1st, China's Supreme Court introduced the second judicial interpretation on marriage and family in the Civil Code, known as Marriage 2. On Chinese social media, many people say that Marriage 2 is forcing women to wake up. They argue that the person who earns money gets the protection, that full-time housewives deserve to be treated like workhorses for men, that housework is seen as free labor, and that women cannot expect any compensation for the toll on their health from childbirth. The clickbait headlines have attracted a lot of attention, but they hide a much more complicated and absurd reality. This legal reform is not a savior for anyone, nor is it the end of the world. Instead, it reflects the deep social conflicts and political control in China, showing how the government uses the law to cover up social problems and strengthen its grip. Article 5 and 8 of Marriage 2 state that whether a house is given by the man to the woman or bought with money from the man's parents, even if the woman's name is on the deed, it can still be awarded to the man. In other words, no matter if the house was bought before or after the marriage, having your name on the property deed doesn't guarantee that you'll get it in a divorce. As long as you paid for it, the house will be yours. That sounds great, especially in a country where it takes the savings of 2 generations to buy a home. But in reality, it's not that simple.
Why don't they mention the first clause of Article 5? With a prenuptial or postnuptial agreement, even if the woman's name isn't on the house, the property might still be awarded to her. And why don't they talk about the second clause of Article 5? It explains under what conditions a man can take back a house he gave to the woman. For example, if you have a quick marriage and a quick divorce and the man is not at fault, the court will still consider factors like the length of the marriage, whether you had a child, fault, and each partner's contribution to the family. In such cases, the man may be required to compensate the woman. The same logic applies if the house was bought with money from the man's parents. The court will look at whether you had children and your contribution to the family. For those who say that women are being taken advantage of when doing housework and that any loss from childbirth cannot be compensated, Article 21 clearly states that if a woman stays at home to take care of the children, does the housework, and even helps her husband with his work, the court will calculate compensation based on the time and effort invested and its impact, using the local average disposable income. This means that the invisible contribution of full-time housewives are finally being recognized as measurable economic value.
Moreover, after this reform, there is no cap on the compensation amount. It depends on the local income level and the family's financial situation. In wealthier families, housework is considered more valuable, and the compensation awarded in a divorce could be surprisingly high. Take the case in Shanghai, for example. A man took out a 10 million yuan loan before marriage to buy a house. When they divorced, the house went to him, but because the woman stayed home full-time for 8 years to take care of their child, the court ordered a 5 million yuan compensation in her favor. The man kept the house but ended up emptying his savings. If he didn't have cash, the house might have to be sold. With the current weak real estate market, it might not sell for a good price, and in the end, the man could be left in debt, while the woman leaves with money. The clauses are written clearly, but most people don't read them carefully. They prefer to listen to oversimplified summaries, which leads to misleading interpretations from the start. Marriage 2 clearly shows a bias in favor of women. Its root lies in Article 1087 of the Civil Code, which states that in dividing marital property after divorce, priority is given to the children, then to the woman, then to the faultless party, with the woman even taking precedence over the faultless party. Why? Because the government doesn't care about who is right or wrong. What it fears is that women, after a divorce, might be left without money or skills, turning them into a potential social bomb. As a result, men are forced to pay a youth loss fee, and even the property of their parents might be divided by the judge under various pretexts. For instance, in one case, a family with assets of only 300,000 yuan ended up with a woman being awarded 500,000 yuan. The judge simply extracted a childbirth fee from her in-laws' 700,000 yuan house. Just because the house is in his parents' name doesn't make it safe. These moves may be legal, but they're shameless. The government's so-called protection of the weak simply shifts the welfare that should be provided by the state onto individuals. Some people claim that the fact that the property goes to the one who paid for it solves the problem of scam marriages. While that does play a part, the real reason is that judges have always ruled on the idea that a man's money should make up for the woman's share. This isn't the judge's own choice, it's a requirement from above. For several years, cases have been decided this way, and the new law simply gives judges cover so they don't have to take the blame. With more people resisting, some judges have even lost their lives because of it. The new rules merely put those unspoken practices on the table. The 2013 case of Li Dashan in Beijing is a clear example. In Changping, Beijing, there were more than 40 houses on rural land, with the affordable houses valued at 1.96 million and the welfare houses at 1.28 million. After the divorce, his ex-wife took all of the affordable houses, barely leaving him with barely over 10,000 in compensation. It was outrageous, but completely legal. The case was handled by the well-known judge Ma Caiyun, who was later killed in 2016 as a result of extreme backlash from such rulings. Instead of rethinking these decisions, the authorities have now enshrined the bias in the new Marriage 2 rules to protect judges from criticism. Fairness in individual cases simply does not exist. Stability is the top priority. The CCP's laws have never been about true justice. Judges' so-called discretionary power is just a mask for political will. Although the clause, "the property goes to the one who paid," sounds appealing, in order to ensure the woman's future, the court will still take away the man's premarital assets and even his parents' money. With Social Security unable to help these women, the ex-husband ends up carrying the burden. In first-tier cities, especially in places like Beijing where property is worth millions, middle-class families have long been targeted. Now, even liberal arts graduates from top universities find it hard to secure jobs, and marrying into a wealthy family has become a shortcut. In divorce, these women use claims like lost youth and household contributions to get more money. There are even online posts teaching people how to profit from divorce. For many middle-class families, while the older generation saved enough to buy several houses, the next generation might not be able to earn enough to protect that wealth, making them the perfect target.
The new rules set guidelines on betrothal gifts and infidelity. Betrothal gifts go to the woman, and if one partner is unfaithful, they get a smaller share of the property. Any gifts given to a mistress must be reclaimed. This means that even without divorce, property can be divided during the marriage, and if a divorce happens, the husband might receive little or nothing. For the wealthy, this means both the wife and the mistress could end up taking money.
In fact, this makes divorce cases as unpredictable as Schrodinger's cat. Until the verdict is announced, no one knows how much they will lose, and in reality, divorce costs for the rich have increased dramatically. A new trend has emerged online. Since women no longer care only about houses, they now focus on a man's height, looks, intelligence, and emotional skills. What used to be a marriage secured by owning a house now demands you to be over 180 centimeters tall, have an 8-pack, and even know how to speak romantically. Otherwise, no one will be interested. Some people think that these new rules will make Chinese people marry for love like those in developed Western countries. But in developed countries, low divorce rates aren't because the laws are amazing, but because the social safety nets are strong enough to allow marriages to be driven by emotion. In China, if a woman leaves her job to stay at home and finds herself with no means after a divorce, marriage becomes a battleground of interests rather than one based on love. In reality, asking for a house when getting married doesn't mean that the woman is trying to scam the man, and not every man who depends on his partner is deceitful. Some people simply want economic security or want to contribute through housework and childcare, efforts that are just as valuable. The new rules on household compensation protect these contributions and show that society is slowly recognizing the importance of this work. The real shock of China's new marriage law isn't found in the sensational headlines. The truth is that the government is trying to maintain social stability. One of the most common problems in divorces is the snatching and hiding of minor children.
Article 12 and 13 of Marriage 2 makes it clear, whoever takes the children loses. Whoever plans to take the kids away loses. It's meant to discourage men from taking their kids.
It's a bit stricter than before, but it's still just a cosmetic fix to cover up what has always been a top-down mandate, not to move towards real fairness. If this new rule were truly biased against Chinese women in favor of men, then the top tier of Chinese feminists, the so-called T0 group, would have already taken to the internet with massive outcry, condemning this judicial interpretation in every possible way. These T0 women are not ordinary internet users. They're outspoken, well-organized activists on platforms like Weibo, Xiaohongshu, and Douban. known for quickly turning any gender issue into a major online storm. Yet right now, the online scene is surprisingly calm. There are no trending topics or overwhelming debates, only a few scattered complaints. This unusual quiet suggests that they do not see marriage too as a monster at all. They may even have found parts of the law that benefit them. The T-Zeros have obviously seen that marriage too has not completely tilted to one side, so they are neither furious nor excited, but are just calmly weighing the chips they can still get. Why did the CCP launch this move in 2025? The answer lies in three factors: population, economy, and geopolitics. China is facing a severe population crisis, with the labor force expected to drop below 900 million by 2030. This trend poses a huge threat to both the economy and social stability. In the past, a woman's role in marriage was often seen as that of a housewife who depended on her husband's income and property as a safety net. But with a labor shortage, that model can no longer stand. The new rules change how property is divided in a divorce, weakening that safety net. For example, the division of property is now much stricter for the partner who does not work. This is designed to force women into the labor market. Without the security of property, they must work to gain economic independence and help fill the labor gap. At the same time, the rule aims to reshape family roles. The traditional model, where the man is the main breadwinner, is being replaced by a system where both partners contribute. Under this new system, marriage is no longer just an emotional bond. It becomes a functional contract meant to serve economic transformation and social stability. The CCP hopes that by reshaping the family structure, it can ease economic pressures and keep domestic affairs stable amid the broader US-China competition. At first, marriage too appears to simply regulate marriage, but its true purpose is to reinforce the social structure. The family is seen as a stabilizer. If couples work together to tackle economic challenges, social divides will lessen. But if marriages break apart, social instability could worsen. In this view, marriage is not just a personal choice, it's given a national mission, becoming part of a larger geopolitical game. Marriage is no longer seen as a necessity in life, but as a kind of business deal that requires weighing benefits against risks. In the past, men held an advantage in the marriage market because of assets like property and cars, but the new rules diminish the value of property. Today, emotional value, social connections, height, intelligence, and similar traits have become the new assets. Men who lack these advantages might be edged out of the marriage market, and the survival space for some 30 million bachelors may shrink even further. On the other hand, highly educated women can thrive under these new rules, enjoying economic independence and legal protection, and may even use these functional marriages to climb the social ladder. However, women who rely on marriage to change their fortunes face even greater risks. Prenuptial agreements, choosing not to have children, and open relationships are gradually becoming more common. Marriage is no longer a lifelong commitment, but a customizable contract. The rise of the single economy is another major development. Products and services like mini appliances, single-serving meals, and AI companions are quickly becoming popular. People are starting to redefine what happiness and success mean, moving away from the traditional family model. In the end, these new rules tear away the warm sentimental view of marriage and reveal its true functional and utilitarian nature. This brings us to a deeper question. With the old rules thrown out, it's time for everyone to redefine the source of their own happiness, whether through career success, personal growth, or exploring diverse lifestyles.